Welcome. Today I have David Schwartz, who is a staff attorney at Elder Law and Advocacy. I guess I'll start the conversation by asking what brought you to Elder Law and Advocacy.
I did grow up here in San Diego, although when I heard about it, I was out at law school in Michigan. But Elder Law and Advocacy's HICAP program, our Medicare counseling program, was helping my grandmother with an issue she had at the time dealing with long-term care. Long-term care insurance. They weren't paying out. HICAP made sure they did. That was nice, and I ended up being an intern here my very first summer of law school, and they haven't been able to get rid of me ever since.
I like that. So I know in your time at ELA that you've worked on conservatorships both in San Diego County and Imperial County. Can you tell us a little bit about what is a conservatorship?
So conservatorship is a somewhat lengthy court process to really just determine two things. First, it determines whether or not a person, the proposed conservatee, can make their own financial or medical decisions. And then once that's established, if they cannot make those decisions, then the probate court needs to establish whether the person asking to be made conservator is an appropriate person to make those financial and or medical decisions on behalf of the conservatee.
Very nice. And you kind of touched on it, but can you tell us a little bit, like, what are they called, these types of conservatorships?
So I mentioned the financial side and the medical side. The terms for those in a conservatorship, there's conservatorship of the estate, that's the financial side, and then the conservatorship of the person would be the medical side. And when you're petitioning for conservatorship, you can ask for just one or both.
Okay. And is it like a similar process, like forms, and can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. It's the same process. There are lots and lots of forms. It is very much a paperwork-focused court process. The forms are the same, but there are forms that you don't normally have to fill out if you're just asking for the medical side for conservatorship of the person. There's a lot of course, financial information that needs to be filled out if you're asking for conservatorship of the estate. There's also some extra fun follow-up on the conservatorship of the estate. You've got to provide an annual, sometimes even more frequent, accounting to the court itself that you wouldn't have to if you were just applying for conservatorship of the person, which is why those are much more common.
Okay, got it. And you've definitely mentioned a few times that it's a lengthy court process.
Unfortunately, yes.
Like if a client wants to avoid that process, are there any alternatives to a conservatorship?
Absolutely. I want everybody to have an advance health care directive and a power of attorney. They're just the best thing to plan for, hopefully something that never happens. If you create those documents, you never lose capacity, you can always make your own financial and medical decisions, then you're not out anything. You haven't lost anything, but you had those planning documents in place. With the power of attorney, you're naming some other person or people to be your agent or agents. In the event that you can't make your own financial decisions, you give them authority to make those decisions on your behalf. And then the same thing would go on the medical side with an advance healthcare directive, letting you appoint some other person or people as agents to make medical decisions on your behalf if you can't make them yourself. With those in place, it doesn't absolutely eliminate the possibility that a conservatorship might come up, but it greatly reduces the odds that that's going to be necessary. It could still come up if there's typically a family dispute over who's making the decisions and what the decisions are, but generally that's something that can be avoided with your own planning, creating those planning documents.
Oh, very good to know. And in your role at Elder Law and Advocacy, do you assist clients with preparing any estate documents like the Advanced Healthcare Directive or Power of Attorney, or do you help assist with filing for conservatorships?
So answering the last one first. So we don't take on conservatorship cases ourselves. Part of the reason is there's a very good program put on by a different legal service provider, by Legal Aid Association. They run a conservatorship clinic. They got to set up right inside the downtown San Diego courthouse They share a wall, I believe, with the courtroom that hears every single conservatorship case for the county. And their program can guide any petitioner through the entire conservatorship process from beginning to end. They don't provide actual representation, but like I mentioned, it's a very paperwork-focused procedure. So they help with the paperwork and prepare you for the hearings where typically you're just going and hearing what problems there might have been with your paperwork. But as for the planning documents, yes, we absolutely do prepare those. I prepare certainly my fair share of those here for clients at Elder Law and Advocacy, and they're my favorite thing to do because it's one of very few situations where somebody can come to Elder Law and Advocacy to prevent a problem that hasn't happened, as opposed to coming and saying, well, something's gone wrong and what can you do to help us fix it?
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like a very helpful thing to assist with. Do you think there's like a right or wrong age that you should think about these documents?
Well, I'd say the wrong age is 17 and under because you're not capable to contract yet by law. Actually, with some exceptions, but yeah, there's because there's just no downside to having these. As if you're an adult, it's a good thing to have, and hopefully never need, but it's really good to have.
Very good. Thank you for sharing. So what happens a little bit, like after a conservatorship is granted, just going back, what does that look like? Like how often do you have to report?
Sure. So I did touch on earlier with the conservatorship of the estate, the financial side, there is an annual review. The conservator has to put together a whole financial packet explaining, really accounting for every dollar that's come in and gone out of the conservatee's accounts, because who owns what hasn't changed because of the conservatorship. The conservator is just managing the conservatee's money. There's also usually it's semi-annual, every 2 years review of the conservatorship of the person, the medical side. But because there's not really anything in particular that they need to review, oftentimes that's done essentially in the background. There would still be a hearing. You're still supposed to show up for, but you don't really need to prepare for it. And the only time you really need to tell the judge anything is if there was something major that happened. The conservatee moved. The conservatee had some major medical issue, something along those lines. It's pretty rare.
Yeah. Got it. Well, thank you. I feel like if I learned anything, it is to think ahead and to prepare the Advanced Healthcare Directive and the power of attorney to avoid this lengthy and tricky process.
Best solution is to not have the problem in the first place.
Totally agree. All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you for having me.